Welcome in on a Monday, everybody. I'm Reed Cowan. So we start the week with an eye on the investigation into what appears to be another assassination attempt on former President Donald Trump. We'll take you live to South Florida, where the FBI investigates their suspect. Plus, social media platform TikTok fighting for its survival in the United States. Is the clock running out on TikTok? This is CBS News 24/7. Let's go. Starting us off on a Monday, our video feeds take us to Delaware and this glimpse of the president on his way to Philadelphia. President Joe Biden will speak at the HBCU Week Conference, celebrating historically black colleges and universities in the United States. So we wanted to show you that live look, but let's now jump the map to Texas. This is some breaking news coming out of the Lone Star State, and look at that right there. Our live monitor showing us the fight is on in a very real way to stop flames burning at a pipeline. This is in a place called LaPorte, which is about 25 miles outside of Houston. So as we look at the smoke and the flames, here's what we know right now. People in that area told to evacuate, but that's really tricky business as we look at these live pictures there, because many of the roads are closed in that area. You also see power lines on fire right now. Not only the poles smoking there, but right there at the top where the insulators are that move the load and the electricity through that pipeline. That is on fire as well. And then you see the culprit right there in the middle. That pipe spewing out lots of fuel that's on fire. So it's all hands on deck right now. In fact, if you look at the bottom left hand of your screen there, you see a boom truck. That's about as close as they can get right now to the flames. Looks like those are trying to just keep the buildings in that surrounding area wet to protect them while they try to get that pipeline under control. There are reports, we understand at this hour, of a shelter-in-place situation that is issued for a college that's not too far from this area. So right now we continue watching that large pipeline fire, knowing no injuries yet. We'll continue watching this one throughout the hour as news breaks. We also want to take you to Florida right now, where the man accused of what appears to be an assassination attempt on former President Donald Trump appeared in a federal courtroom today. The suspect is 58-year-old Ryan Wesley Routh. He's charged with federal gun crimes. Police say he pointed an AK-47 style rifle at Donald Trump while the former president golfed in West Palm Beach yesterday. In fact, we just got new body camera video just a moment ago showing the moment he was captured by deputies. Watch this.
Driver, take 2 steps to your right. Take 2 steps to your right. Driver, walk straight back. Keep walking! Keep that long.
Deputies there made quick work of that arrest. Well, this morning, President Joe Biden reacted to that attempted attack, saying Congress needs to step in to give the Secret Service the help and the resources they need. Listen.
I think thank God the president's okay. I think we got a full report so far. We're down there tonight. But one thing I want to make clear, the service needs more help. And I think the Congress should respond to their needs if they, in fact, need more services.
CBS News national correspondent Manuel Bojorquez joins us live now from West Palm Beach. What are they saying about this guy? What do we know about his background, Manuel?
Well, it was in the federal courthouse behind me here in West Palm Beach where we learned a little bit more about him and also about the charges that he is facing right now. Those charges: possession of a firearm by a convicted felon and possession of a firearm with an obliterated serial numbers. They carry a maximum punishment combined of 20 years in prison. The judge asked him if he understood the charges. He said yes. He also said he understood that he had the right to remain silent. What we found very interesting inside the courtroom was his demeanor, and it matches what the sheriff of Martin County has been saying about him, and that you saw in the body cam video there, that he seems very calm and relaxed given the gravity of what he is accused of doing yesterday. In fact, in the courtroom, when he was seated next to the public defender, he was at times smiling and laughing. We couldn't hear their conversation, but definitely did not seem like somebody who was concerned about the kind of charges that he is facing. It was also interesting that at this preliminary point in this hearing, we did not hear anything about an attempted assassination or the former president's name being mentioned. This was a hearing that went just less than 10 minutes before saying that he will be back in court next week to see if he will be held for pretrial detention. In other words, whether he will receive bond or not.
Manuel Bajorca is fresh from the courtroom where that all played out. We look forward to more reporting from you in the weeks ahead. Thank you so much for streaming with us today. All right, so when we come back, we're going to be talking to CBS News senior foreign correspondent Holly Williams a little bit later in this broadcast on reports that she did by way of an interview with Routh about his traveling to Ukraine in hopes of helping that country's fight with Russia. A lot of discovery. We are familiar with him because our organization has interviewed him before. Meanwhile, Donald Trump is set to meet with the acting director of the Secret Service today. And CBS News campaign reporter Olivia Rinaldi joins us live now. Olivia, any indication of what the former president or his camp have to say about the events of the weekend?
Well, Reed, we're starting to hear reaction from the former president in the last several hours. He spoke with Fox News, where he said that the suspect believed rhetoric of Biden and Harris, laying the essentially what it could have happened to him yesterday at the feet of Biden and Harris, saying that they are increasing rhetoric against Trump himself, talking about him being a, quote, threat to democracy. And he's saying that the suspect perhaps believed it and acted on it. That is Trump talking to Fox News. Later in a Truth Social post, Trump said that because of the politics in our country have been taken to, quote, a new level of hatred, abuse, and distrust, he says, quote, the bullets are flying and it will only get worse. So rhetoric from the former president laying this at the feet of Biden and Harris, talking about their rhetoric. But Reed, it's really exemplary of where we are in American politics right now, of kind of these jabs going back and forth. Trump yesterday also said that his resolve is stronger, given that this is the second perhaps assassination attempt on his life that we've seen in the last several months. The FBI saying it appears to be an assassination attempt. But he's saying his resolve is strong and that he will continue on campaigning. He has several campaign events later this week in Michigan, New York, and then in North Carolina. So we're tracking all of these things very closely as what is perhaps the second assassination attempt unfolding is raising questions about the security around former President Donald Trump.
And we know the current president is now calling on Congress to give the Secret Service the resources they need. Olivia, thank you so much for that update. So let's talk about Vice President Kamala Harris, because the former President Trump did. We have a little bit of her reaction. Vice President Kamala Harris says she's glad Trump is okay. She also decried violence in America. She offered those thoughts while also vying for critical endorsement from the International Brotherhood of Teamsters Union today. They've got 1.3 million members. In fact, they're one of the largest labor unions and organizations in the world, but so far, they've not yet put their weight behind a candidate. Both President Biden and former President Donald Trump attended similar meetings earlier this year in the election cycle. And so that is a voter base that both campaigns would love to get. So let's bring in CBS News political director Finn Gomez. Finn, Teamsters typically get behind Democrats. Any reason why Teamsters have yet to throw their support behind either Trump or Harris?
Hey, Reed, yeah, for the first time ever, the Teamsters set a new standard for their endorsement. And that process was to have these roundtable interviews with these presidential candidates. As you mentioned, they did meet with President Biden earlier this year, former President Trump as well. So this meeting would be their final sort of point in the process before they come to a decision on their endorsement. The expectation is that she will get the endorsement from the Teamsters. It's like, as you mentioned, it's 1.3 million members. Also, the president, Sean O'Brien, president of the Teamsters, Sean O'Brien, did say on Face the Nation earlier this month that unless you can't get someone a job unless you give them an interview. So specifically, this was what the tentpole that they were looking for to make that decision. And just a reminder why it's so important. Reed, 12% of 12% of the electorate in Pennsylvania, in Michigan, and also in Nevada belong to unions. So essentially, that union vote could decide the election in those respective states. We have seen some erosion from some of the rank and file members of these big unions going to Donald Trump primarily on social issues and also on immigration. So they're trying to stave off any more erosion the Harris campaign is. That's why this endorsement or potential endorsement, Reed, is so important.
They want to close that deal. Harris is also set to participate in the panel with the National Association of Black Journalists tomorrow. What more do we know about that and the importance of talking to that specific group of people?
A couple things here, Reed. If you recall, earlier in the summer, former President Trump also had a sit-down panel with that same group of journalists, or same group of journalistic organization, the NABJ. In that, there were some controversial remarks that he made about Harris's racial identity and culture that he immediately got this big backlash over, political backlash. There is a potential that will also rise. We also expect her to be asked about the events that took place in Florida over the weekend. It would really be the first time that we would hear from her per her schedule since those events transpired, a potential second assassination attempt against the former president and her opponent. So there's a lot of crucial questions we expect there in that specific panel. And also just a reminder, it's happening where? In Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, one of the most crucial of all battleground states with 19 huge electoral votes. Reed?
All eyes on all 19. Hey, Finn, while you're here, you have new reporting about a meeting between Trump and the acting Secret Service director. We touched on this a little bit in the first part of the broadcast. What do you know?
Yeah. Sources familiar tell me that the former president is expected to meet later this afternoon with the acting director of the Secret Service, Ronald Routh Jr. We do have some reporting that there is an understanding that there is an expectation that the acting director will likely provide his recommendations to former President Trump on Trump's risk level and what acting director Routh's recommended posture would be concerning like golfing, outdoors, etc. I did speak to someone close to the campaign this morning, to the Trump campaign, who tells me that there is a concern amongst some of the folks in the campaign that Donald Trump golfs too much, essentially, especially in these last 50 days, just because of the security perspective, that he should hopefully scale back on some of those outdoor outings. Reed? So
is there a difference in protections offered to a candidate as opposed to a sitting president? And could this perhaps deepen those protections in the next several weeks before the election? There is, specifically, there is a much more robust form of protection when it comes to a sitting president as opposed to a presidential candidate, even if it is a former president. So, for instance, like in that road, the perimeter around the Trump International Golf Course, right. Typically, in our experience, when we're down there, it's usually shut down when it is like when he was president. Let's say I did many pool trips as when I covered the White House, and then you compare that to just over the last few days when they didn't shut that perimeter down. So that's something that's notable, anecdotal, yes, but overall there is a difference between a sitting president and a presidential candidate in terms of security. Reed. All right, Finn Gomez, thank you so much. It's always good to see you, my friend. Thank you for that reporting. Okay, so when we come back, we're going to take you back to the Lone Star State and that developing and breaking news there. A pipeline exploding. It's on fire right now. People are evacuating, and an entire college campus is in a shelter-in-place situation. We'll take you there live when we continue. CBS News 24/7, streaming coast to coast and worldwide. We want to take you back to Texas right now in that breaking news. We want to show you some live pictures where the fight is on to stop flames that are shooting out of a pipeline. And there you see right there. This is in a place called LaPorte, which is about 25 miles outside of Houston. So here's what we've been able to gather from officials who are on that scene right now. People in the area told to evacuate. You see the roads there, no cars because they're closed. The roads are completely closed in that area. So that makes evacuations pretty difficult there. There are also reports of a shelter-in-place happening, issued for a college in the area. And then you can see some of the surrounding fields are burned. In fact, some of the smoke still rising from the fields there. Amazingly, at this hour, as we cover this story, no injuries reported yet. But you see those power poles? They're literally smoldering. The smoke coming off the power poles right now because of the force of that blast. A lot of people affected here in LaPorte, Texas, because of this explosion at that pipeline. A lot of questions to still get answers to. We'll continue to watch this story throughout the hour. As soon as we get more information or news breaks, we'll take you back live on the stream to LaPorte, Texas. Well, the clock is ticking for TikTok as a court battle begins over the future of that social media giant. So TikTok and its parent company ByteDance under fire over warnings that China's government could gain access to your data. Lawmakers want the company sold, but just hours ago, a federal appeals court panel heard opening arguments from both that social media platform and the Department of Justice on whether the app should be available in the United States. By the way, that ban is scheduled to go into effect January 19th, unless it's sold to a non-Chinese company or something happens in court. So let's take the conversation there. We want to go live to one of my favorites and smartest, by the way, CBS News chief legal correspondent Jan Crawford. Jan, you and I have gone from Supreme Court arguments to now a Supreme discussion on Supreme social media. Tell us about the arguments laid out by both sides.
We know everything touches on the courts, Reed. So, here we are today talking about one of the most downloaded apps on social media. How many young adults get their news and information from TikTok, and also, use it to share video and funny stories and memes. Well, it was not like that in the court today for TikTok. There was not a lot of laughing at videos or humor. It was a pretty tough slog because the judges in this federal appeals court today seemed very skeptical of their arguments that this federal law that requires TikTok to be sold to a non-Chinese company by January, as you said, or shut down in the United States. They seem skeptical of TikTok's arguments that that law is unconstitutional. Now, the Justice Department, as you said, also presented their case, arguing that the law was crucial for national security interests. The government, Congress passed this law, bipartisan basis. When does that ever happen? President Biden signed it into law, concerned that because it's this Chinese-owned company, the Chinese government could say, give us all the data. And they've got data from 150 million to 170 million American users. And they're also worried that the Chinese government could dictate how we get the content in those feeds and those For You things. And that could really manipulate American public opinion. The judges today on this appeals court were very concerned about that national security component. But of course, Reed, as you know, in our system of justice, the appeals court, they ain't the big court. This is the middle level of appeals. And so whoever wins or loses in this case, that loser is going to go straight up the hill on Capitol Hill to the U.S. Supreme Court. And they're going to have the final word on this, obviously, by January.
This is a fascinating thing, and I'm also reading that part of the argument by ByteDance and TikTok is that imposing this infringes on their free speech rights. Can a foreign company claim protections under free speech rights?
That did not seem to go anywhere today in the arguments. I mean, there are very skeptical judges who were saying, wait a minute, foreign companies, no, you don't have a First Amendment right. They seem much more sympathetic to arguments that American citizens would have a right to get their media, their social media, however they want to get it.
Right.
But that was a pretty tough row for TikTok to hoe in the court today. And I think these judges, and you had a very prominent, highly regarded liberal judge on this appeals court. On the flip side, very prominent, highly regarded conservative judge. And obviously they don't always see eye to eye, but they did seem like they were kind of in agreement that that was a non-starter.
Conservative and liberal judges and Congress, conservatives and liberals, seem to be of one mind. Meanwhile, millions of TikTok users wait to see what happens as we approach the end of this year. Jan Crawford, it's always a joy to have you on the stream. Come on back very soon. We appreciate you.
Thanks, Ray.
All right, so our live feeds now take us to South Carolina and a live look at Myrtle Beach. And you can see there, looks downright quiet. It's not because people are taking naps. It's because they are getting ready for a tropical storm. That warning is in effect right now, Jess.
This is an active storm right now as it moves its way all throughout that area. We're talking about anywhere up to around 1 to 3 feet of storm surge along the Carolinas, along that coastline as we head into the next couple hours. All throughout the afternoon, evening hours tonight, early morning hours tomorrow. There's also flood watches in effect. That's that color you see right there just along that shoreline as we head into the coming days. Taking a look behind me, this is an impressive little system that we have going on right now. It's not going to gain any more strength now that it's moving inland. However, it's still going to pack its punch. I already mentioned the storm surge, but we're also expecting anywhere up to around 4 to 8 inches of rain with the system alone. And this is where the track of it. It goes throughout the Carolinas. This huge system is slowly creeping its way in, bringing in heavy amounts of rain throughout all the Carolinas, stretching its way up into West Virginia and Kentucky as we head into the coming days. It'll continue to bring in more moisture for areas like New York all the way over into New Jersey. However, we continue to keep a closer eye on North Carolina with an enhanced risk for that excessive rainfall, where we could see anywhere up to around 10 inches locally. Now, as we head into the coming days, we will continue to also track the strong winds too. Wind speeds anywhere up to around 35 to 40 miles per hour are expected with this system. But the thing I want to mention too, a tornado threat is possible just along that shoreline in North Carolina. So we're going to have more on this coming up in a bit, Reed, but it is active.
Yeah, and you know who else is watching the weather? Firefighters in the state of California. There might be some good news for firefighters as they do battle with 3 major fires. Lots of fires burning in California, but some really major ones. We'll also go back to Texas a little bit later in this broadcast to show you that pipeline fire. More breaking news when we come back. Welcome back. We're learning new details about a potential new victim linked to the Gilgo Beach serial killer. Officials in New York released these new images of a man found in 2011, but could have been killed up to 10 years before that date. They're hoping that this will help identify this victim. Listen.
Unfortunately, this victim suffered a violent death. The cause of death was homicide by blunt force trauma. We know the death occurred during or prior to 2006, and that those remains were on Ocean Beach for at least 5 years before being discovered in 2011. So the actual murder occurred based on the forensic examination of the remains in 2006 or earlier. Some of this information is being released for the first time. Specifically the descriptions of the clothes that Asian Doe was wearing at the time of death, and that although Asian Doe was a biological male, Asian Doe was wearing exclusively women's clothing. Because the victim was wearing exclusively women's clothing at the time of death, it is possible that they identified as a woman or were known by others as being a woman.
CBS News reporter Carolyn Gussoff has the latest on what we know about this developing case.
Reed, good afternoon. This was a plea to the public to help solve another one of the Gilgo Beach homicides, a murder that was probably committed around 2006, investigators believe, and the body was discovered in 2011. It's a biological male dressed in women's clothing, a victim who had never been identified, who was dubbed originally by police as Asian Doe. Investigators want to put a name with this victim so this murder can finally be solved. They gave the case to facial reconstructive experts who examined the skull, worked with the skull, and came up with very advanced images with both short and long hair. They believe the victim was likely from southern China. They were wearing Bill Blass pants and a bra. They put out images of the clothing labels. They believe they were between 17 and 23 years old, around 5'6", and they believe that they were a sex worker. They've translated these posters into many Asian languages, including Mandarin, Thai, Cantonese, and Indonesian. And they were asked today whether Rex Heuermann is a suspect in this killing, and they said they're not able to bring charges against Rex Heuermann at this time. He, of course, a suspected serial killer tied with 6 other victims, many of them found just 300 feet from where this Asian victim was also dumped. Prosecutors say that Heuermann searched online for Asian sex workers and Asian escorts. Suffolk DA today asked people of Asian descent to sign up for DNA genealogy sites to help them solve this case. They're asking the public to take a good look at these images so that this victim will no longer be nameless and that loved ones can finally get answers, adding that there is also a $2,500 reward for information. Reed?
Someone out there has got to know something. Let's hope the tips come in. Let's go to California now on our map, where more people are out of their homes and on the run right now because of 3 major wildfires. So the airport fire, it's burning southeast of Los Angeles. That one's scorching 36 square miles. Containment right now is about 31%. Then 70 miles north along the border of Los Angeles and San Bernardino counties, crews are still fighting one called the Bridge Fire. That one has burned 85 square miles. Then, of course, the monster, the Line Fire, also burning in San Bernardino County, now responsible for burning 60 square miles. There's an upside to talk about right now. California may be getting a little bit of a cool down in the coming hours, which is a help for these firefighters trying to stop these fires and at least get them to slow down, Jess.
It's that silver lining, of course, cooler weather to help them and a little bit more relative humidity, but the winds are starting to kick up again all throughout the coast of California. If you live anywhere along that coastline, you knew it was a breezy weekend for us. Here's those current numbers one more time. The Bridge Fire currently at 54,000 acres, Line Fire at 39,000. We continue to deal with poor air quality in this region, with air quality alerts lasting into the afternoon and evening hours tonight, as well as a wind advisory throughout all of Southern California, stretching over into Nevada too. So that smoke plume impacting areas like Las Vegas all the way over into Utah too, but that's mostly upper level atmosphere. Now as we head over to the surface level winds, anywhere from San Bernardino stretching over into Los Angeles, we could get max winds today and tomorrow anywhere up to around 20 miles per hour. And as the system moves in from the north, bringing in more winds, it's also bringing in cooler weather. It's this huge trough of low pressure. Just basically imagine a cold air surge moving its way in from the Gulf of Alaska. That's the big reason why, as we head into the coming days, daytime highs over near Los Angeles, where goodness, it was just last week we were talking about record-breaking numbers, and now we're starting to see cooler conditions around the corner. We're talking about 60s in the forecast today near Los Angeles. Still some 80s off near Las Vegas with those hazier skies as we stretch throughout that desert region. We'll have more on this coming up in just a bit. But Reed, it has been a very, very active season so far over in California. CAL FIRE continues to work hard. They activated the National Guard. It's been very crazy.
Somebody said to me today, let's just bring on the rain.
I know.
Let's get this done. Okay, thank you so much. Hey, come over here because I want to show you something. We just want to take you back to this breaking news situation. This is playing out in real time. You see that column of fire right there, all the smoke, and then that burn scar around that? That's in LaPorte, Texas, right outside of Houston. A pipeline is on fire. It's actively burning. And we understand that there are some impacts to business, to schools, and evacuations. We'll take you back to Texas for more breaking news when we come back. When we see it, you see it. So we want to get back to that breaking news out of the state of Texas right now. You can see in the live pictures that we're going to pop up from the map here in just a minute. A column of fire and a lot of smoke. This is in LaPorte, Texas, where crews are working to shut off a pipeline, whatever is inside that pipeline that's fueling now a fire there. Zooming in here, you can see there at LaPorte, about 25 miles away from Houston, from our helicopter shot there. This is an active fire, and it also caused singe marks and fires all the way around that. I just checked with a website that tracks electrical outages all throughout the United States, because you see the power poles burning right there. And apparently 4,700 customers in this area are without electricity. And now this is an example of how this story has changed so drastically. That's a building right across the street from that plant. We do not know if that's a residential structure, but it appears to be a residential structure. And now the roof is on fire. And it looks like firefighters are doing their level best to try to keep the flames at just that one house. So you can see as the chopper makes its way around, you can see that orange glow from the center of that home in the center right there. That's because that attic is on fire. And look at that. The power of those water cannons down on that fire, trying to get that fire out. Now, we also understand that there are evacuation orders all around this area where that pipeline exploded and is actively burning right now. So the people who are in those structures, and we do believe that's a home, don't have confirmation yet, they are out. We are seeing firefighters on the ground, firefighters fighting it from the sky. They're shooting down into the flames, but also people blocks away also being told to evacuate because we don't know right now what's in that pipe and what's burning. So live images, breaking news out of LaPorte, Texas. We'll continue following this as that pipe continues to spew flames right there, causing the attention here on CBS News 24/7 breaking news right now. Well, the FBI and the governor of the state of Florida are investigating that apparent assassination attempt targeting former President Donald Trump at this hour. His name, Ryan Wesley Routh. Today he faces federal gun charges. He appeared in federal court today in West Palm Beach, and police got him after Secret Service agents saw a muzzle of an AK-47 style rifle pointing towards Donald Trump while Trump was out golfing. Here's Governor Ron DeSantis of the state of Florida talking about his state's separate investigation.
We're going to be doing a state-level investigation. I understand that the feds are involved, but we do believe that there were multiple violations of state law. We also believe that there's a need to make sure that the truth about all this comes out in a way, that's credible. I mean, I look at the federal government with all due respect to them. Those same agencies that are prosecuting Trump in that jurisdiction are now going to be investigating this. I just think that may not be the best thing for this country. Nevertheless, they have their prerogative, but we have our prerogative, and so we'll be making an announcement further along those lines in the ensuing days.
Someone who covers the courts and the governor and all of his moves. CBS News Miami's Joan Murray, a legend and an icon down there in the Miami market with CBS. You're live in West Palm Beach. Joan, it's been 24 hours since the incident. Set the scene for us.
Well, Reed, it continues to evolve. We are at former President Trump's golf course, which is just outside of West Palm Beach. This is considered unincorporated. Take a look behind me. You see those men in the suits. They are federal agents all morning long. Federal agents, FBI, have been out here concentrating on that area you see there, and that is where the accused gunman apparently was set up yesterday when this whole incident unfolded. They did take out some evidence earlier. It looks to me like they are just basically kind of doing some measurements and doing things at that particular area right there. They've been having some conversations. This golf course is huge, surrounded by these almost 20-foot high ficus trees. Obviously, this took some planning, some doing for this accused gunman to get in here and plan and to actually get a layout of what this golf course was like. You can only imagine the work that went involved. These are pretty thick hedges. He managed to go, according to authorities, go between those hedges and set up that gun, and that is when the Secret Service got clued into what was going on. Now, late this morning, I was in federal court. That's just about 5 miles from here, federal court in West Palm Beach, and that is where the suspect appeared. Again, his name is Ryan Wesley Routh. He was pretty calm. The judge asked him a number of questions about his finances to see if he qualified for a federal public defender. He said that he is employed. We found out that he works as a carpenter part-time in Hawaii, where he was living, making about $3,000 a month, but he said he had no other assets except 2 trucks, which were worth a combined $2,000. After hearing that, the judge said, yes, you qualify for a federal public defender. The judge unsealed the criminal complaint, and he, according to that complaint, faces 2 offenses: possession of a firearm by a convicted felon and possession of a firearm with an obliterated serial number. There was not too much information given exactly what that meant. Of course, you can tell just by the wording of that the weapon the accused was using, the serial number was taken off or somehow not there. So at this point, he's being held by federal authorities. We believe he is in the local county jail because there really isn't a federal lockup here. And the judge said he would come back to court in a week's time, at which time they said they would see if he would be eligible for bond. Federal prosecutors told the judge not to release him at this time. They deemed him a flight risk and a threat to the community. So Ryan Wesley Routh remains in jail at this point. So we can tell you again that you see federal authorities still trying to gather evidence at the scene of where this happened yesterday. We are told that they're going to be out here through at least early tomorrow. Later this afternoon, the sheriff of Palm Beach County, who did a lot of the talking yesterday, along with federal authorities, in just a few hours' time, is supposed to be releasing more information. So stay tuned for that. Reporting live near West Palm Beach, Joan Murray, CBS News.
Joan, it's not often we get to see the feds actively doing an investigation right there behind us in a national broadcast. Thank you so much for that and for all of the information. We appreciate you so much. All right. We also want to let you know when we see it, you see it. And we just saw former President Donald Trump having this to say on Twitter. Now, he has said in a fundraising email some things about what happened there down in South Florida. He said it on Truth Social, but now he is saying it on X, formerly known as Twitter. He says, "I would like to thank everyone for your concern and well wishes. It was certainly an interesting day. Most importantly," the former president says, "I want to thank the U.S. Secret Service, Sheriff Rick Bradshaw and his office of brave and dedicated patriots, and all of law enforcement for the incredible job done today at Trump International in keeping me, as the 45th president of the United States and the Republican nominee in the upcoming presidential election, safe," all caps. Also all caps, "the job done was absolutely outstanding. I am very proud to be an American." That from former President Donald Trump, candidate Trump, on X, the platform formerly known as Twitter. CBS News has learned that Mr. Routh, that you heard Joan talking about there right outside where this all played out, is a strong supporter of Ukraine. He even traveled there to recruit firefighters to help Ukraine defend itself against Russia. In fact, look at these. These are images of Routh at a rally that he organized in Kyiv. CBS News senior foreign correspondent Holly Williams was in contact with Routh for more than a year. Watch.
Hey there, Reed. When I woke up this morning in London to the news that Ryan Routh was the suspect in an alleged assassination attempt on former President Donald Trump, I was stunned to recognize the name because I had been in touch with Ryan Routh for over a year in the early stages of the war in Ukraine. Like thousands of other international volunteers, he apparently went to Ukraine to help. I do not believe he was fighting himself, but he had put up signs in Kyiv, Ukraine's capital, offering to help other foreigners find places in Ukrainian battalions. And that's how I initially came across him. I spoke with him, I think, once on the phone and texted frequently. And he put me in touch with several foreign fighters. He seemed very genuine and passionate about supporting Ukraine. He mentioned plans to bring in thousands of Afghan and Syrian fighters, which I took, frankly, with a grain of salt. In an interview with the news website Semaphore, he claimed he'd been unable to get visas for Afghan fighters, but we don't know if he was actually in touch with any Ukrainian officials at all. Now, I've met American volunteers everywhere from Syria to Ukraine. Some are experienced soldiers and very clear about the dangers they're facing. Others seem less well informed and their motivations can at times be confused. And to be honest, Ryan Routh did seem at times to be fairly naive. At one point, he sent me an audio track of a song he'd apparently recorded about the carnage caused by the war in Ukraine. In November of last year, he told me he was back in the US in Hawaii, and that was the last time I heard from him. Reed.
Wow, you cannot write this stuff. Well, back to Washington now, where just moments from now, Vice President Kamala Harris is set to sit down with members of the Teamsters Union. She's putting in her bid to get their endorsement, and it would be a big deal for her to get that. She's hoping to secure votes from one of the largest labor unions in the world. CBS News political reporter Aaron Navarro is right outside of that meeting. 1.3 million members. That's a huge voter block to try to secure. Kamala Harris wanted to get that deal done, Aaron.
That's right, Reed. And the Teamsters labor union is one of the few major labor union groups that hasn't endorsed at all this cycle. That's why you're seeing Vice President Harris come to this candidate roundtable. They did roundtables with former President Trump and President Biden when he was a candidate as well. We know that Vice President Harris, near the top of this hour, began her roundtable. We just saw the traveling pool press with her leave, signaling that that meeting may have ended or is about to end soon. And we'll hear soon from Teamsters officials at this podium right behind me on how that meeting went.
Fascinating to see. We will see which way they go. Thank you so much, Aaron. We appreciate your live report on the stream today. Hey, when we come back, we want to take you back to the Lone Star State because you see the scene there behind me. That is causing evacuations of so many people. The power is out to almost 5,000 people after that pipeline blew. We also understand that several buildings are now on fire just across the street from that. So a lot of breaking news coming out of Texas just outside of Houston. We'll continue watching that. We'll bring it to you live. All right, welcome back. We want to take you to Philadelphia now, where President Joe Biden is right now speaking with the HBCU Week Conference, celebrating historically black colleges and universities in the United States. But we just got this sound from him speaking on that apparent assassination attempt against former President Donald Trump. Here's what he had to say.
I want to make a quick reference. The attempted assassination against our former president in Florida yesterday. I commend the Secret Service for the expert handling of the situation. And the former president is protected from harm and is subject to the custody. An acting head of the Secret Service is in Florida today assessing what happened and determining whether any further adjustments need to be made to ensure the safety of our former president. Let me just say, there is no, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, those of you who know me, many of you do, no place in political violence for political violence in America. None. Zero. Never. I've always condemned political violence. I always love America. In America, we resolve our differences peacefully at the battle box, not at the end of a gun. America suffered too many times the tragedy of an assassin's bullet. It solves nothing. It just tears the country apart. We must do everything we can to prevent it and never give it any oxygen. Folks, now it's today's event. It's an honor to recognize HBCU excellence in our nation. I see excellence in it every single day. I see it this weekend. The Congressional Black Caucus Foundation. I tell you what, Foundation Gala, only about 3,500 people there. And I was happy and I wanted to do this to celebrate the first ever White House brunch to celebrate Black excellence. Black excellence. As many of you in your alumni attended, it's about time to point out what's already been done. I'm proud to have the most diverse administration in history. It taps into the full, made a commitment, my administration is going to look like America. It taps into the full talents of our nation.
President Joe Biden just moments ago addressing a very large crowd of people who, as you saw at the top of that video, taking a lot of video on their cell phones of him decrying that apparent assassination attempt against former President Donald Trump, and then talking about the need to bolster the Secret Service and get them the resources that they need. Let's go to the Middle East now. Palestinian officials say Israeli airstrikes killed 16 people in the Gaza Strip today, including 5 women and 4 children. CBS News senior foreign correspondent Elizabeth Palmer following these latest developments.
The Israeli military continues to pursue its mission to eliminate Hamas in Gaza, and so that, of course, means civilian casualties continue to mount. Again today, a missile flattened a house in the Nusayrat refugee camp, which is right in the middle of the Gaza Strip. Palestinian hospital officials say 7 members of a single family were killed, including a child. There was another strike, too, in Gaza City, not far away, which killed a woman and 2 more children. Meanwhile, the negotiations to reach a ceasefire and the release of the Israeli hostages appear to be going nowhere. The formal negotiations have so far taken place through mediators in Qatar with U.S. and Egyptian support. But we just spoke to Gal Hirsch, who's the Israeli special coordinator for hostages and the missing. And he appears in front of our cameras to have opened publicly another channel with an offer to Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar. The offer says that Israel will give Sinwar safe passage out of Gaza if he relinquishes control of the Gaza Strip and returns all 101 remaining hostages. The offer also extends, says Hirsch, to Sinwar's family and as many people as he wants to take with him. This, he implied, could end the war. Now, Sinwar is never seen in public. He is the most wanted man in the region, and he hasn't responded to this proposal. But his last communique to the Houthi rebels doesn't sound like a man open to a deal. In it, Reid, he said, "We have prepared to fight a long battle of attrition that will break Israel's will."
That is it for CBS News 24/7 on a Monday. We leave you with these stunning live pictures right now. A pipeline fire in the town of LaPorte, Texas. More updates throughout the day on CBS News 24/7.